Thank you, EFOPLI, for having us. Thank you, audience members, for joining our workshop. My name is Julia Hedges.
And my name is Nayla Noe.
And our title, or our workshop today, is on embedding formative assessments into instruction. And our organization is EDU 360 Global.
So let's have a look at the learning outcomes of today's session. So we hope that by the end of this session, you will have a better understanding of formative assessment. You'll be familiar with Newsela, which is an online tool. You'll be able to facilitate peer and self-assessment. You'll have an understanding of what is jigsaw reading, how can I use it in my classroom, and how can I use a graphic organizer with reading. And finally, you'll have a chance to reflect on the strategies you've learned today and how you're going to implement them in your classroom. So let's get started. Let's first have a look at assessment. And I'm sure all of you, even if you're experienced, even if you're new teachers, you know what is assessment. Everyone does. Well, I want you to think for about 30 seconds about the following two questions. We're going to divide assessment into two things, summative and formative. So the first thing I want you to think about is, what do you think of when you hear summative assessment or summative? And then what do you think of when you hear the word formative? So formative assessment. So just take about 30 seconds to think of those two. Okay, let's move on now and have a look at the definitions of both of them. So we're first going to have a look at summative. And we've got two definitions here, and the keywords are in bold. Now, summative is actually the assessment that you all know very well, because this is what you had when you were a student at school. And also this is the one that you do most of the time, because all teachers globally tend to focus on summative assessment. What is summative assessment? At a specific point in time, you're going to record a student's overall achievement. You're going to evaluate the student against a certain standard or benchmark. The goal is really to get a grade or a mark. This could be at the end of the semester. That could be at the end of a unit. This could be at the end of the year. You want to know, has the student been successful? What is their final grade? And this is what we do all the time. So all of you, I'm sure, know what is summative assessment. Now, some of you may not be so familiar with what formative assessment is. Maybe you already know it, but you may not know the word formative with assessment. So formative assessment, and there's again two definitions here. There's an academic definition, which is maybe a little bit more difficult to comprehend. And then we've tried to provide you with a simple definition. Formative assessment is what you do every day, all the time. It's ongoing assessment. Students do it themselves, the teacher does it, and the purpose is to check learning. Where are the learners? How much progress have they made? Also for the learner, where is my learning? How much progress have I made? And then we adjust teaching and learning as needed. So the teacher may decide, oh, this group of learners, they don't understand. I need to explain it again, or I need to review, or those students are a little more advanced. They need some more challenges in their learning. As a learner, I get to assess my own learning, and I get to determine, what do I need to do to improve? What can I do? What are my next steps in learning? It can be done by the teacher. It can be done by the student individually. We then call it self-assessment, or two learners can assess each other's learning, and then we call it peer assessment. And we're going to talk about these types of assessment a little bit more in detail later today, because remember that today's session is about formative assessment. So I'm just going to have a look, and in this chart we have examples of formative assessment and we have examples of summative assessment. Yes, and we've actually already talked about them. If you look at the right-hand column, which are the summative examples, I've already mentioned it. At the end of the semester, you may have an exam. At the end of a unit, you may have a test, or you could have weekly quizzes. And if they're graded, then they would also be examples of summative assessment. Now, when we talk about formative assessment, I've already mentioned you could be doing it in pairs, and you could be editing, for example, your partner's writing. If two learners are editing each other's writing using, for example, a checklist, we call that peer editing or peer assessment. And Julia will be talking more about this later, about an example. And of course, there are many other examples of formative assessment. So let's look at formative assessment in terms of a lesson in detail today.
So we've talked about formative assessment, summative assessment as one of our outcomes. Another outcome was to make you familiar or become familiar with Newsela, which is an online reading platform. It's newsela.com. I frequently use this in my classroom, in my hybrid, face-to-face, and in my online classes. It is a website devoted to reading. You can scaffold the readings or make them easier or harder depending on the level, and students can self-assess their level, and Nayla is going to show you that in a minute. And you can have teacher and student accounts. On the next slide, Nayla is going to show you how you can find an article and how you can adjust its reading level.
So let's have a look at the Newsela website. And it's important to say here that not all students in a classroom have the same level. They might have different reading levels, and therefore, like Julia said, we need to scaffold the reading. We need to differentiate for different reading levels. And Newsela provides this opportunity for teachers. So we don't have to differentiate the text ourselves. So let's have a look. This is an example of a news article from National Geographic, and it's about the world population, which is predicted to reach 9.6 billion by 2050. Now, if I open Newsela, I've got an account and I've selected this article, I can then go to the top right-hand corner, you see here, and it says 1160L. If I click on the little arrow, I get 5 different reading levels. I've got max and I've got 4 different ones. If I click on max and I go down, I can see under the picture, which is the same, of course, the title and the picture are the same for each of the reading levels. And then I get what is the word count. You see here 578, you see a text level 9, and you can see that this is quite a challenging reading in terms of vocabulary, in terms of length, in terms of sentence structure. So you see here quite a challenging article. I need to already be quite an advanced reader. Okay, I'm now going to take it down a notch. So I'm going to simplify it. Now it's important to note that the content remains the same. The content in terms of the topic remains the same. Also, the titles of the subheadings also remain the same. It's only the sentence structure and the vocabulary that are simplified. So I'm going to go down 2 notches and I'm going to take it down to 1020. You see here 1020 gives me a reading level 7. Again, we've got 653 word count. And as you can see, simplified, but subtitles remain the same and the content remains the same. I'm now going to take it down a little bit again. So I'm not going to show you all the levels, but I'm now going to show you the lowest level, which is a level 3. You see, again, the title remains the same, subtitles remain the same, but as you can see, fewer sentences, the language is simplified, content remains the same. So you see here, students with different reading levels can be assigned or can choose the same article and can read it together. And that's why Newsela actually scaffolds reading and provides opportunities for differentiation. And Julia is going to give an example of this. So I'm just going to continue so you can see here on our slide. You can see this is the level 9. This is the level 7. This is the level 3. And we're now going to go to our reading lesson with Julia.
And before we start the lesson, I will just note that it's really important, as Nayla just showed you, to kind of tell students why they're doing that. So model for them. So I take them and on the projector, I show them, I talk through it. I say, oh, this article looks interesting, but it looks a bit challenging. And depending upon how much time you have in the class, you might choose to assign a level to the whole group so that, for example, you need a shorter reading. So there's lots of things you can do with it and different approaches to take. But what's important is the students understand why they're doing it, why they're self-assessing themselves, as Nayla just showed us. So thank you, Nayla. Now I'm going to walk you through a reading lesson that I frequently use in class with my students, and I'm going to take you step by step. The first step one, in pairs, so Nayla and I, for example, together, are going to choose an article. And we choose that article on population growth. So we're going to sit by each other with our computers, or we're going to look at the example articles our teacher gave us. Maybe she gave us 3 or 4, and we are going to choose one. We're going to choose an article together. Now, we were learning hybrid and virtually all last year. So my students would literally sit with their iPads side by side or their computers, and they would negotiate. I would hear them talking, but I like this article, but I like this one. But ultimately, they had to come to a conclusion and they had to find an article together. And actually, that process is really fun. So now, step 2, after Nayla and I have chosen our articles together, we are then going to choose our reading levels. So unless you've already assigned a reading level, the students can go on, they can find the reading level that fits them best, okay? And then they're going to read individually alone. And step 3, as they're reading the article individually, they're going to read it and take notes using a reading checklist. So this is one example of a reading checklist. What is the name of the article? And for my level 5 students, this is really important because they're starting to learn to write research papers. So understanding that they have to give attribution to the author and what is the title is really important. What is the article about? What's the main idea? And then lastly, do they recommend the article? Why or why not? So this is one example of a self-assessment and peer assessment checklist. Step 4, Nayla and I now have both read the same article, but individually, and we've both taken notes. And now, Nayla, can you please take my notes and I can take your notes? And now we are going to peer edit using the checklist. I'm going to look at Nayla's notes and see, does she have the name of the article? Does she have the author? Does she have the main idea, etc.? So then once I look at her notes and I look at the checklist, I can then give her feedback. Next slide. So I notice that she recommended the article, but she didn't say why. So the next step will be giving Nayla feedback. Next slide. So step 5 is I'm going to say to Nayla, and again, this takes some modeling. Before this works constructively and productively, I like to model phrases for my students. So I noticed, Nayla, you did not say why you recommend this article. So now Nayla knows she's recommended it. She clicked yes for recommending, but she needed to say why. So I recommend this article, for example, because it is important to understand why some countries are experiencing an increase in population growth, for example.
So now Julia and I are both experts at the population growth article. Yes. And as experts, we're an expert group. In this case, we're actually an expert pair. There's 2 of us, but we are an expert. Imagine we are the red group. Now, the yellow, the blue, and the green group, there are also 2 people or more people that have read the same article. We have taken notes, yes, about our article. We have peer edited. I've checked Julia's notes. Julia's checked my notes. We understand the article because we actually read the article at a level that we feel comfortable with. We self-assessed our reading level, and now we're ready to share our reading with other students who have read a different article. And this is called jigsaw because it's like a puzzle. Julia and I belong to one puzzle, and now we're going to fit into another puzzle with people who have read different articles. We're going to be sharing our article orally. I'm going to talk about my population article with someone who's read a different article. And when I listen to the others talking about their article, I'm going to take notes, and they're going to do the same when they listen to me. So in front of you, you have an example. This is the graphic organizer of Ibrahim Ansari. He has listened to me talk about the world population article because I'm in his new group. He's listened to Tiago talk about teenagers developing a game that assesses mental health. And he's listened to Paulina talking about a teen baker who makes desserts. Each time he listens to, for example, me, to Tiago, to Paulina, which we all talk about a different article, he's taking notes in his graphic organizer. What is the title? Who is the author? What is the article about? And does the person speaking recommend it? So for each of these, he's taking notes. So we're checking not only can he write, but also can he listen? Can the other people present? Yes. Have they read their information? We're basically checking all 4 skills.
And Nayla, I noticed you and I am not on this graphic organizer because you and I read the same article. So I would have gone into a different group as you.
Yes. We belonged in the same expert group, but we're not in the same sharing group. So once we get to the jigsaw, we change groups because you and I have already had a conversation. We've already shared. We've shared the same article. We don't want to be in the group talking about the article because we know what our article is about. We've read the same article. So we're in different sharing groups now.
Something to note before we move on to the quiz, Nayla, is just that now we've taken it from self-assessment to peer assessment to now teacher assessment, because as they're talking in groups, the teacher can be monitoring by walking around, listening, checking comprehension, asking questions, and then by receiving the graphic organizer, she can see who has some boxes blank. Does that have to do with listening skills? Does it have to do with maybe the presenter? And then from that, we can start to kind of embed, do we need to embed some presentation skills? Do we need to maybe encourage students to, rephrase or speak a bit slower? So we can look at what's being captured on these graphic organizers.
Let's continue. So what have you learned today?
So we've created a mini quiz for you, and I'm going to read you the questions and your options for answers, and we'll take about 10 seconds for each before Nayla tells us the correct answer. So the first one is, students choosing their own reading level is an example of A, teacher's assessment, B, peer assessment, or C, self-assessment. Nayla, I'm going to say C, self-assessment, because I'm actually choosing it myself. Yes?
Absolutely, Julia, you're absolutely correct. So we're talking about our own reading level. I'm choosing my own. It's self-assessment because remember when we first started talking about Newsela, and we said that on Newsela there are 5 reading levels for each article, and I can basically choose, I can look at the article on the 5 different levels, and I can choose which one is suitable for my reading level. So yes, it is self-assessment, Julia. I'm doing it on my own individually.
Number 2, peer assessment means that students give each other feedback. True or false?
What do you think?
True. Because it's peer. It's my partner, my peer, and we're giving each other feedback.
Yes, remember, Julia and I gave each other feedback. That was the example of peer assessment.
3, an example of a formative assessment is A, teachers listening to students to understand their progress. B, students checking their own work with a writing checklist. C, students giving each other feedback with a writing checklist. Or D, all of the above.
This may be a little more challenging, so I want you to think carefully which answer is correct. But guess what? If you chose A, you are actually correct. Yes, because teachers listening to students to understand their progress is an example of formative assessment. If you chose B, which was a writing checklist, which is similar to what we did before with the peer editing, you are actually also correct. If you chose C, you are also correct, but which one is actually the perfect answer or the best answer? It is D, because it is all of the above. Both teacher assessment, self-assessment, and peer assessment, all three of them are examples of formative assessment. And we've actually covered all of those three today during the session.
So thank you. And our last outcome today, and for sake of time, we won't spend too much time on this, but it's self-reflection. And I think it's a very important piece. So please take 1 minute and reflect on the following questions. And then Nayla and I will briefly share some ideas of our own. And we definitely wish that we could hear your ideas as well. But please do take the time to think about these questions and write some notes if you can. The first one is, what is one takeaway from this presentation that you can apply directly to your classroom, to your teaching and learning? Second, how can formative assessment facilitate or create or engage learners at a deeper level of learning? So just take 1 minute to reflect, and Nayla and I will do the same. Nayla, do you want to start with one?
Okay, so let's think a moment about number one. And I think it's quite easy to find a takeaway to apply in your classroom, because we've talked about many different things today. We've talked about many strategies. We've talked about tools, about an app that you can take away. So maybe you decide to start with using Newsela. Yes, maybe you'll let your students, for example, choose their own article and choose their own reading level. Or maybe you'll decide to give them which article they're doing and you still let them choose their own reading level. Maybe they're going to be working in pairs or in groups. Maybe you'll try some peer assessment one lesson in which they're using a checklist, or maybe you'll decide to go for jigsaw reading. And you'll put them first in expert groups or expert pairs, and later you'll let them share. So there's many different things that you can take away. And it's a question of trying new things and seeing what works in your classroom, perhaps trying it in different ways that make your students feel comfortable. It's giving them opportunities to collaborate and to share and to communicate, of course.
So it facilitates deeper meaning because it really ignites students' metacognitive learning. They have to think about their learning, or they have to think about their peers' learning. They have to at times be teaching. They're sharing and giving feedback. They're talking in small groups. They might be asking questions. So it really makes it where you're engaging all 4 skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing in a meaningful way, because you can be sharing content that can be interesting, but it's manageable for students because it's been scaffolded. They've been able to talk with their peer. They've been able to check their own work. They've then turned in a graphic organizer, received feedback possibly from their teachers. So it really creates a deeper sense of purpose for students. It's very student driven.
Thank you, Julia. Let's move on. So we wanted to introduce you today to our global chit chat. And we really hope that you'll be able to join us online in the future. So every month we have a global chit chat. And the idea of global chit chat is that as educators, we don't really get a lot of opportunities to talk with our colleagues, and certainly not with our colleagues in other countries. Most of you are probably in Brazil, some of you may be in other countries, but you want to be able to talk with people all over the globe, share ideas, collaborate. And so in order to do that, we are organizing a monthly global chit chat. And this month's global chit chat is going to be on online learning. And every month there will be a different topic. You can register to share if you're an expert in a specific area, or you might just want to come online and attend the session, participate in the breakout rooms, and get new ideas for your classroom and for your teaching. So if you're interested to join us, please email Julia or myself. The emails are there, and we'll put you on the list, and then every month you'll get an invitation to our global chit chat. So we really hope that we'll see you there.
Thank you so much for attending our presentation today. We wish we could meet all of you in person and share ideas and work in groups and pairs and talk, but that's not the case right now. So please do send us an email if you want more information about anything or to join our global chit chat. And lastly, these are our references. Thank you very much, EFOPLI. Again, have a wonderful afternoon, evening, or morning, depending upon when you're watching this.
Yes, bye-bye.